Hello there, everybody. Wow, Zoom has some updates now. When I open up the webinar, it gave me a little message about it. Pretty cool. Come on in. Everybody can grab a seat. Welcome to this week's edition of the Virtuous Insider. Super excited. I love that we get to do this weekly now and we get to hang out. And I'm excited. I feel like more people are kind of joining in and participating, which is really fun. I'm glad to see everybody jumping in and doing it. Before we get started here, we do have a couple of quick housekeeping items. I'll run down those while everybody kind of gets situated, and then we'll jump in for realsies. As usual, we are going to record today's presentation, right? We always try to make these available after the fact in the support center. So you will be able to go grab the recording and share it with other people and tell them how awesome it was. Because we do want to get a pretty good recording. Everybody is muted right now. That way we don't get too much background noise. That said, as always, we welcome questions. Bring those questions. That's totally good. And if you do have a question, please go ahead and send it in through that Q&A box. That way we won't lose track of it, right? Sometimes we get a good lively chat going on, which is nice. I'm happy to chat too. I'll hop in there. But we don't want to miss that question, especially if it's important. So if you send it in through the Q&A, geez. We won't miss it. We can make sure that we address it for you today. When I say we, it means it's probably time to introduce our featured guest for today, which is actually really cool. Today we're doing our product pulse session. I know a lot of times we'll have Jason join us, talk a little bit about the product. Today we're taking a little bit of a different tack. So you've got me, as always. I'm Scott Richards, those of you who don't know, Director of Training here at Virtuous. And our special guest for today is Mr. Adam Valverde. Adam is the Director of Engineering at Virtuous. He's the brain behind so many of the features that you guys know and love. Adam, thanks for joining us today, man.
Yeah, I'm happy to do so. How does this normally go? It's my first time, so should I tell them a little bit about myself?
Hey, sure, why not? I mean, everybody here's nice. This is these are all insiders, so they're all on the inside. They're all cool.
Excellent.
Yeah,
These are probably the type of people who use Virtuous daily, love it, are working with it extensively. So those are my kind of people. A little bit about myself. I'm a big nerd. I really love to program. I've been in the industry for a very long time. I started out in enterprise organizations, very large organizations, working on enterprise software. So some of the stuff you've probably seen that and maybe even used is some of the software that's used to automatically upgrade you if you're a frequent flyer on American Airlines. So that was some of my work. And then eventually I wanted to transition into a different kind of area in the industry. And I went down the path of finding a startup called Virtuous, a little company where I could really stake my claim and make some very big waves in the industry. So I'm very excited about being here, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Swell. Excellent. Nice. Yeah. And so everybody who's flown American Airlines, you all owe Adam a debt of thanks, especially if you've been upgraded. And if you haven't been upgraded, it's Adam's fault. That's how that works. It goes both ways. So for today, our agenda, these 30 minutes, man, they go by so fast. So we didn't want to get too crazy, but I do want to focus on some of the recent updates, right? We just had a few updates to the platform, the in-app roadmap, which by the way is really fun to say, in-app roadmap. Display names on custom fields, which not everybody may have realized, right? Not everything can be featured in those release notes. So I wanted to highlight those. So those are kind of a neat little feature. And then something that is a little bit different is just a new pattern when you bulk edit. Everybody on this session probably has already stumbled across this on your own. I wanted to make sure everybody kind of knows a little bit of a different behavior there. And then Adam is joining us. We wanted to chat a little bit about data security, the importance of data security, and really kind of how we approach that here at Virtuous. We always seem like kind of a silly group of people, but there are certain things we are serious about. One of those is data security. And if you have questions, of course, go ahead and send those in. We would love to answer your questions, and then we'll wrap things up here for another edition of The Insider. So let's jump in and look at a few of these release features here. So to do that here, we'll just flip on over to Virtuous proper. Look at that. And so first and foremost is something that everybody who's been joining these sessions, if you've been hanging out with us on the Product Pulse and everything else, you kind of knew this was coming. You guys had the inside track, no pun intended. But that product roadmap that we've shown in some of these sessions before, of course, now it's accessible right there in Virtuous. You click on the little mortarboard hat and you can bring up that product roadmap. And that product roadmap is sorted into these 4 different categories. So there's features that we are considering. So these aren't slated to be built. We don't have a timeline for them being built. They're not coming out in a week, right? But we are heavily considering these, and we'd love to know what you think about that. Things we have already committed to building, right? So these are not, we're not building them today. We don't have somebody who's working on the code at this moment, but we are committed to adding these. They are on the roadmap and they're definitely coming. Things that are currently in flight, that we're currently building right now, right? And then, well, this one's got to move over right there because there's things that are released, so things that are in the application proper. And for any one of these, if there are certain things that you want to see, if you think that's important, something that's critical, you can click on any one of these cards, and then you'll see you've got a couple different ways to vote on this. You tell us if it's nice to have, if it's very important, if it's critical to you. And then when you do that, it'll also give you an opportunity to send in a little bit of additional feedback, additional color for that too, okay? So it would be great to have you guys give us that feedback, because we don't just wanna build features in a vacuum. Adam will tell you, he could build pretty much anything, right? We wanna make sure that the things we are building are the things that are going to impact you the most, things that are going to help you the most. We want to drive you in that direction. Okay. So that's the in-app roadmap. Again, fun to say. But number 2, the other thing I wanted to highlight is the fact that we've added display names to custom fields now. And so if you go in here and you go to data customization and you go to edit any of your custom fields, or if you go to create a custom field, let me flip things around here. I think I got an organization where I've got a few more. Whoops. Always nice when I already have custom fields, isn't it? Should have been my giveaway. But if I come in here to shoot custom fields and collections, yeah, there's a whole mess of them. Look at that. Then if I edit any of these fields, you're going to see I have the ability to configure a display name for that field. Got a little tooltip in here to help you understand what that does or what it's for, because this gives you essentially a public name for that field. So if you're going to add this to a giving form, if you're going to add this to an event form or anything like that, then you can go ahead and do that. And you'll see that display name on that form. So especially if you have an internal name that's not really nice or sounding or anything like that, you can give it a nicer public facing name for that field. Now you could already do that when you added fields to forms. You added a custom field to a lead form, you could give it a name, a label on the form. But what this does is it eliminates you from having to do that every time you add the same field to a new form. It just drops it in there automatically. It's a pretty nice way to be able to do that, and then just use those same fields again and again in multiple forms and have that display name out there. Okay. Now, the third thing I wanted to highlight, again, is a little bit of a different pattern and a little different behavior. And some of you guys have probably run into this already. If you haven't, then this is great because you won't be a little thrown. But we did change the way that records are selected in query results. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just pull up a query, the results of the query here. And previously, when you wanted to do anything, add a tag to all the records or what have you, all these records were selected already, and you just came in here, went to actions, and you could add a tag to all those records. Pretty nice. The problem was, if you wanted to only select a subset of these records, or if you wanted to unselect one of them, when you checked that box, it deselected every record, and you had to go manually select every record you wanted to bulk edit. So that took a lot of time. It was something we heard from users, from you guys again and again. Hey, I wish you guys could come up with a better way to do this. And so that's why we made this change. Now, records aren't selected by default. So the actions button is faded. Can't do any actions yet. If I want to bulk edit all my records, I can select up here and it'll tell me, hey, you've selected all the records on this page. Did you want all the records in your query? And if so, I can click on that. Now it tells me I've selected all 1,093 records. And I can go ahead and do my bulk actions. And now, if I wanted to do this for only a subset of these records, this makes it much easier to just come in and select those. Or if I wanted to select all items, I can do that too. There we go. We tried to make it a little bit easier, but just know if you come in here and you see that this is grayed out and you can't do any actions, there's a little update flag to let you know about this there, but a little bit different behavior, especially if you're doing any statements or bulk receiving from here, right? A little bit of a different behavior. Okay, now we can talk about all the rest of the features, but hey, we've got Adam here and we don't always get that sort of thing. So I did just want to chat a little bit about data security. And I feel like this is something that we get questions about sometimes in terms of data security, in terms of how secure data is in Virtuous or how we keep our data secure in Virtuous. And I know that for all of you guys, there's a certain level of trust involved where you're putting some trust in us to make sure that your data is being kept as securely as possible. Adam, I didn't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about, from your perspective, you're much more of an expert on this than I am. Sort of just the importance overall of data security, even beyond just fundraising data, beyond this industry.
Yeah,
and then maybe
absolutely.
some of the things that set us apart. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so as with any technology firm that's housing data that isn't necessarily related to just internal, but also external stuff, you know, as we get more complex and we get more tooling, more collected data, the risk for losing that data and some bad actor acquiring that data and using it for nefarious purposes increases over time. It's just, it's a fact of life now. You know, every few days, I'm sure you're hearing about some kind of technology firm or some kind of attack where someone was able to get some kind of data set. And a lot of the time it's researchers and they're publicizing their findings so that they can improve those pieces of software. But other times we don't even know about it until months later when some reporter found out about this hack and found the data on the dark net. You know, it's an ongoing problem in the industry wide in terms of the technology industry. And so at Virtuous, we take this very seriously. And one of the first things you'll hear any seasoned veteran of this kind of stuff is you don't roll your own crypto. And what I mean by that is we don't try to reinvent the wheel in terms of cryptography or any kind of security. So what we do is we look at the best practices of the industry. We look at, okay, how are people securing their web servers? How are people securing their databases? How are people securing, whatever endpoints people are sending files over or communicating with? And so in any of those systems, we're using the best in class and most recent systems available to secure that data. And I can get into the really nerdy stuff if anybody has some specific questions, but it's really good to know that, when you're using Virtuous, we're using the latest and greatest. of the industry standard software that you can expect from any firm in the industry.
Yeah, and especially because we're storing, what we would call PII, personally identifiable information, on all of your donors. And I know that the thing here for all of you guys is not only is there a level of trust in terms of you trusting us, but I know that in turn, you all have all of your donors trusting you with their personal contact details, and especially if you're using Virtuous Giving, right? So they're going ahead and going to your donation page and they're typing in their credit card and they're processing that donation, and there is an inherent level of trust there. And so we do take that pretty seriously. And like Adam said, the big thing is we don't want to assume that we're smarter than anybody else. We want to make sure that we're using the best in class tools to keep some of that data secure.
That's right. And someone asked a great question in the Q&A. If you are utilizing Wi-Fi from Starbucks or a shared usage, how is your data protected? So that's a great question. Anytime you are connecting to Virtuous, you are accessing our web servers via what's called a TLS connection. The most recent version is 1.2. That's what everybody's using right now. And we have what's called server web certificates, which are updated yearly. And they've got this long and complicated thing called a trust relationship between who certifies what servers. And so using this very standard internet technology, what that does is it takes your connection in Starbucks and it encrypts the information being started from your machine in Starbucks or wherever you are. And it's end-to-end encryption with you and the server. And the reason that's important, end-to-end encryption, is because if poorly implemented, what could happen is someone could have a server or a Wireshark agent or some kind of interceptor or some kind of bad actor on the Starbucks Wi-Fi network. And what that does is that can allow them to intercept your request to Virtuous and then read the information coming back and forth by doing that. But we're also utilizing another industry best practice, which basically puts us on a list of servers that you need to open a connection directly. You can't use a proxy. And if you do use a proxy, it's an abandoned connection. And so we utilize that technology to ensure that there's nobody redirecting or intercepting the request made from that machine at Starbucks to us. And so it gets into really nerdy details, but essentially that end-to-end encryption is what allows us to securely communicate with your machine wherever you're at.
That is awesome. Oh, wow, look at that. We had someone else who wondered that. I'm assuming that was about the Starbucks question. And yeah, I feel like there are people who are just afraid to like sit in an airport, right, and pull up a profile. Now, I will say, and Adam will probably back me up on this, hopefully he will anyway, but even more than the technology, right, when we talk about data security, if you look at any of the sort of information on cybersecurity out there, it's less the technology. The least secure attack vector here is people. And so if you're sitting in a Starbucks or in an airport and you're looking up someone in Virtuous, Adam just detailed entirely how the data is secure, flowing back and forth, right? But that doesn't stop someone from standing over your shoulder, right? The person using the software is probably more vulnerable to attack than the technology or the connection behind it. And so being aware of that, being aware of all the things, phishing scams and everything else, having good security practices in terms of your password, not storing it in a sticky note stuck to the side of your monitor. Those are all things that contribute heavily to the security of your donor's data, right? Just as much as everything that Adam just detailed in terms of the security of the encryption when you connect from public Wi-Fi.
Yeah, Scott, you raise an excellent point. When we talk about security, we tend to go into the technology aspects of it. But a lot of these hacks that happen are through social engineering. And what that means is they're utilizing the human component to technology to gain access. And so Scott's exactly right. You don't want to be, storing passwords on Post-it notes on the screen of your computer. You want to be utilizing the best and safest way to generate passwords and reuse passwords. And there's lots of tools out there. I have some personal recommendations, but everyone I talk to, I always mention, get a password manager. If that's in your browser, that's fine. If it's a third party like LastPass or 1Password, those are also great. But password managers are great because what you don't want to do is you don't want to share your single good password with all your websites. Because what ends up happening is if any one of those websites gets exposed and that password is the same password you use on all websites, well, now you're vulnerable. Now they just need to know, okay, what sites have they logged in, and let's see if this password works on any of those. And so that's a very dangerous vector, and it's a very simple thing to solve. Just go get a password manager, set up your one global password, and then allow it to generate and fill it in for you. So that's a great point, Scott. I'm glad you brought it up.
Oh man, thanks. I try. Now and again, I have a few useful points.
We have another question on here that's, what kind of backups are there in case of a ransomware attack? So ransomware attacks are very interesting. And I don't want to run out of time here because I could talk for a while about ransomware attacks. But just to give you a little peace of mind, we do have a very verbose set of backups on our databases. And the way our databases are protected and encrypted is, again, using industry best practices by setting up a firewall, only allowing certain information to come in and out. The databases are encrypted at rest. They're encrypted in transit. And so when any communication is done between any of the layers of our architecture, it's done via an encrypted method. And lastly, ransomware attacks are most common in architectures that are on-prem, and we're completely in the cloud. So it does change the attack vector. It does change the equation here for us to get attacked in a ransomware kind of situation. But all that to say is we do take all the very obvious precautions and even some of the non-obvious precautions. Like, we have some software that automatically scans for attack vectors, looks for any connections that are being made or anybody attempting to even attack us. And so once in a while, I'll get pinged and it says, someone in Russia is attempting to connect to this server, and we've stopped it in transit. And so it's fun to say that, like, oh yeah, we've got that covered, but we've got all of these mechanisms in place to try to prevent this stuff and do our best to make sure that all the data in the cloud is secure.
Awesome. Well, hey, I know we have a couple of other questions coming in. Like you said, we'll run out of time. These 30 minutes, they always go by fast. There's one question that came in through the chat. Debbie, I saw your question about trying to find a batch. And so I will always answer product questions. It's kind of my gig. Let me flip back in here to the product for a second. So Debbie, I know you mentioned you wanted to be able to find or search by the batch when you're looking for import. So it sounds like on the import screen, right? If I'm looking for a particular import, I want to be able to search based on the batch. So here I've got a batch that's in here. I don't remember what this batch was. This is all the fake stuff that I've got in here. If I wanted to find that in here, I do have a filter on this screen. And one of the things I can use is I can filter by batch. And you can do really simple ones like, give me all the imports that have a batch, a default batch set where it is known. Shouldn't have done that because I got a lot of them. But so I can run a filter like that, or I can filter for a particular batch, right? So I can say the batch is, or the batch contains, or any one of these, things in here. I can search for that particular import by the name that I gave that batch, or by the default batch that I set when I was doing that import. So you do have the ability to do that too. Just wanted to show that off. I know we had someone who said they were really glad that they heard the question. So thank you. Glad that was helpful. And we had another question here about the mobile app and maybe making some upgrades to the mobile app. And I know we've had a few folks who have been curious about the mobile app and the status of it. Adam, I don't know if you want to mention anything in terms of the mobile app, but I know it's stuff that we've been discussing internally in terms of being able to make some upgrades. There's some things that certainly we'd like to be able to do on the mobile app.
Yeah, without revealing too much, because we've got so much stuff we want to build, right?
Oh yeah.
We have been in discussions of, okay, what do we want to do in the mobile app? What kind of things do we want to offer, and how do we bring a new experience that adds a lot of value to the mobile app? So, like I said, without revealing too much, there are a lot of internal discussions going on about what we plan to do with the mobile app. But I can't reveal anything at this time. So it's currently in maintenance mode, where we're looking for, if people have feedback and they notice an issue, we'll backlog it and then prioritize it and then work on it as we can. But yeah, I personally, I love mobile apps, so I would love to work on that sooner rather than later. But like I said, we've got a lot of things to build, so it's just a matter of priorities.
And I'll add to that just to say, like Adam said, and even the roadmap, right, that points to this. We've got the ability to build an awful lot of things. And we've got a lot of cool ideas bouncing around in some of these meetings and discussions, and even things that we hear from folks. And so the number one thing that helps us know what are the priorities, what are the needs, what are the things that would make a difference, or the biggest difference, is hearing from you guys, right? So when you send in some of that feedback, and you can send that in through the little in-app messenger, right? So if I wanted to send in a note and I want to say, hey, I want to send a message and I have a suggestion for a new feature, you can go ahead and do that, right? And you can tell us what your idea is. If you send in a note and say, hey, I'd like the mobile app to be better, well, that's good, right? That tells us, hey, we've got a lot of people who really want to see a new experience from the mobile app, like Adam mentioned. But let us know if there are specific things you'd like to be able to do. Hey, in the mobile app, I really want to be able to do X, right? I saw there, hey, I want to be able to add a solicitor to a record from the mobile app. Great, right? Those are the types of things. If we start to collect those specific things that you want to be able to do in the mobile experience, that's going to help drive us towards how we want to prioritize it and what features, what kind of experience we want to create. Okay, so I think that would be amazing. Thank you, guys. So, hey, we're right up at our time. Look at how that runs. Real quickly, we've been doing questions. I just didn't advance the slides because I'm a bad host, I guess. Real quickly, I do want to be able to just remind you all, join us next time, right? We're looking to feature an actual client success story. We love to be able to do those. It's been great when we've actually been able to have a speaker on there. And if you have a success story that you want to share, with this group, with the insiders, please let us know. You can send an email to training@virtuous.org. Easy as that. And let us know. We would love to have you. The more that you guys get to hear from people that are not me, I think that is probably better. I think you guys hear enough from me as it is. I love having other experts on here. Okay, and as usual, I like to leave you guys with a little bit of wisdom, some words from someone smarter than me, right? And this is one that I just really like about password security. Now, if we could get Adam started, he'll debate about the idea of changing it often, but passwords are like underwear. Don't let people see it, change it very often, and you shouldn't share it with strangers. Definitely true.
The change it very often is kind of a antiquated notion with password managers. I'll just say that.
It is. Well, and I'll say, I always had a fear of password managers because I thought, well, what if the password manager gets hacked? Then I'm in big trouble. That was always my thing, you know? That's terrifying. I, however, have been converted by Adam to the beauty of password managers. They're super helpful. Okay. Hey, thank you guys for joining us today. Thank you, Adam. Any parting thoughts? Any very special last words for the crew?
Me?
Yeah.
No, no. I just hope you have a great day. And like Scott said, go to the product board and add your input. I'd love to see it.
Excellent. Hey, thank you, Adam. Thank you, everybody. And I will talk to you all again next week. Bye, folks.
Bye-bye.